ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Don Mattingly. Time waits one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here.
What's going on, everybody? We're back with another mini reaction episode here on Tablesetters. As always, I'm Steve, joined my tag partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? What's up? Welcome, everybody, back to Tablesetters. As Steve said, a little mini episode here. We're getting in the groove of these things. Kind of fun. So it might be easier for you guys to take us in smaller doses, too.
For sure. We're going to be here for about 25, 30 minutes discussing three big topics. And we're going to start with the one that we dropped a reel on. There was a lot of conversation this weekend about it, but we have the Toronto Blue Jays officially making their long-anticipated breakthrough in the Japanese market by signing Kazuma Okamoto to a 4-year, $60 million contract, finalizing deal just ahead of the expiration of that 45-day posting window. So this is a straight 4-year deal, Devin, no opt-out clauses, not like the Yamiuri deal. This is structured with a $5 million signing bonus. We get a $7 million salary in 2026, salaries of $16 million each of the final 3 seasons. And they get it done. They get their guy here, and his guy is going to slot in as their everyday third baseman, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, yet again, another signing that we did not necessarily see coming. And when I say we, I don't just mean Steve and I mean kind of the baseball community at large. I mean, the 3 teams for the last week or two that we have been hearing about for Okamoto's services were the Padres, the Pirates, and the Angels. And people were almost talking about it as a certainty. But as we have now learned 3 times, whether it be Murakami or Yamiuri or now Okamoto, other teams sometimes are not really publicized their interest, and then they go and get the guy that they want. And this is not necessarily another example of a guy falling to someone or someone coming back to the table because the price dropped. Okamoto, very much the opposite of the other 2 we just mentioned, as far as the estimate for him was pretty much right on. Okay, MLB Trade Rumors, which ended up being way over the top for Murakami and Yamiuri, and along with other places as well. We just like to use MLB Trade Rumors pretty often here. They had 4 for 64, which almost nailed it here. I hit it on the head. And I got to ask you, why, before we talk about his fit with Toronto, in your opinion, why do you think the estimates were on point for Okamoto, yet so far off for the other 2 players from NPB?
Well, I think it's a direct comparison by all accounts of him being the most major league ready transition-wise, the at-bat. You can see the contact numbers, all those things translate well to Major League Baseball. But with Yamiuri and also Murakami, I think the question marks are too much, where maybe the market need to dictate. The potential is there, of course, but Okamoto, I'm not saying he's a sure thing because there's no such thing as sure things in free agency in baseball, but he's more of a sure thing and a certainty. It feels like he's right there, 29-year-old, just going to jump right into the fray of contact-heavy offense. So I think they're pretty sure what they're getting, and they can project it pretty well.
Yeah, that's where I was going to. I didn't know if you had a different point of view there as far as his skill set seems to be the most projectable. Not a super young dude, but not old either. A little older, has so many years under his belt, has hit home runs off of some of the best people have to offer out there. We've seen clips of him hitting bombs against Roki Sasaki. We've seen one of him hitting a bomb against Yamamoto. I think there's one of him hitting a bomb off of Yamiuri as well. So there's a lot out there. Guy's a 30 home run hitter, does not strike out much. And just to touch upon the Yamiuri thing, I know we already had a separate episode based on him, but there's still been some conjecture out there. And it's very interesting to me how polarizing one of his pitches is. Like, so people talk about the fastball, how it's going to lose a little bit of effectiveness with the baseball and MLB, but the pitch people are talking about a lot is the wrong way slider. Okay, basically a slider that breaks to the arm side instead of the glove side. And you might hear that term wrong way slider and think of Trey Savage, although the arm angle is completely different. So Trey Savage is coming from way up over top. Yamiuri actually has a very low arm slot for a right-handed starting pitcher. But it's interesting because some people are saying one of the reasons Yamiuri didn't get more is because people, like front offices, don't know how to project that pitch. It had like a 46% whiff rate in Japan, where the whiff rates are usually lower. And to me, I'm thinking, yeah, there's not a lot to compare it to. Like, I was able to find like one pretty close comparison when you look at pitch shapes. Yesterday on Baseball Savant, about 2.5 inches of break to the arm side horizontally and like no vertical break. There's only a couple guys that do it, but when you look at their whiff numbers, like they're pretty high on that pitch. To me, I want you to tell me if you agree with me here. To me, when I think of a pitch shape that not many other guys have, and I'm thinking of being a hitter, and you don't see this pitch very much, like I'm thinking like that's a good thing. Like, am I wrong? How do you think of that?
No, I mean, we watched it happen with Trey Savage last year, and maybe the offenses will catch up to him next year when you have a lot of videotape on him. But yeah, if you're different, that's a good thing. I saw one of the replies on our Twitter page at Tablesetters Pod. You're having a conversation with someone. One of the best replies I saw was different is better. And I think having a unique arm angle or something different where you're not able to read the ball come out of the hand, the competitive nature of the hitters I feel like the advantage is for a lot of these hitters to go out there and destroy these. I mean, it's an offense driven game. So if you have an edge and you can go out there and just confuse some hitters, even for a short period of time with one pitch, it does make sense that it would translate. But I think people are scared away from the walk rate. I think putting guys on base has been really his issue, but it seems like the last 4 seasons, he's improved that. So we shall the Astros get the version that we're all expecting, but maybe he has an MI that has a little wiggle room to grow.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we're on the same page here. I mean, that walk rate, I believe he cut it in half last year. So, I mean, maybe the teams just want to see a little bit more, and I can understand that, I guess, when you're giving that much money out. But back to Okamoto, because we already have a whole episode dedicated to him. One of the biggest reasons I love this, like aside from analytics, is just he can step into Toronto and he's not going to have all the eyes on him immediately. Like, does not have to be the savior. They have so many other guys there. They were just in the World Series, 2 outs away from being champions. Like, he can just step into that lineup and just kind of, it's easy for me to say relax, but like just go do his job and like settle in. He'll have time. There's so many other guys around him that have star power or that just are good hitters. So I love the fit that way, just like the mental side of it, the pressure side of it. Toronto might be one of the best fits you could possibly go to for a guy like this.
And I also think what has been a theme for Toronto, I mentioned in our reel at Tablesetters Pod, was versatility and the fact that you have a guy who can play across a lot of these different positions. Third base, we mentioned predominantly is going to be where he's slotted, but he has the ability to play first base. You know, he can go out in the outfield as well. He has he's going to be a guy with outfield experience as well. I mean, we got Addison Barger on this team, Davis Schneider. These guys are multi-position players. And, I think for Barger, that was the biggest question mark we had. We discussed sort of the Bregman piece and like replacing a guy like Barger. Why would you introduce chaos into the free agency in order for, the good vibes carried you a long way. And Barger was a big piece of that. But I think there will be a platoon arrangement at third base. Barger's going to shift to corner outfield role when he's not stationed at third, in my opinion. And this is going to be a lot of heavy lifting on the managerial side of things to make sure the guys are in the right spot, get the at-bats. I mean, this shuffle maybe pushes Ernie Clement into maybe a consistent role at second base. All reports have Andres Jimenez playing full-time from second base to an everyday role at shortstop. And I think, the right-handed bat from Clement does have some flexibility here. And maybe he's going to spell Jimenez because obviously he's left-handed against the lefties himself. So obviously Schneider sliding over to second base in those matchups. But I think a lot of this is fluid because we don't know if the book is closed on Bo Bichette, because I think if he resigns with Toronto, this also changes. And I don't think Okamoto being here closes the book on it at all, because if Bichette returns an everyday role at either short or maybe even second base, Okamoto or Barger could probably see an increased time in the outfield, but they're going to find at bats for all these guys. And I think the versatility is going to play a big part of it.
Yeah, and John Schneider kind of proved last year that he became a little bit of a managerial star last year, and he was doing a little bit of juggling last year too, especially with Bo Bichette in the World Series, like kind of healthy but not really healthy, and like needing to get him off the base pads. Like he'd like sometimes take a couple of bats and then be out. And there was one game there where Schneider actually got some criticism because I believe he basically like emptied the bench out and was getting to a real risky spot at one point in the game. Maybe it was the 18-inning game. I don't really remember. That would make some sense, I would think. But not afraid to make moves and kind of juggle these guys around and try to get the best out of them. So I think it'll work there. And just to add to what you just said, all reports are basically saying this does not take them out of the Bo Bichette race or the Kyle Tucker race for 2 reasons. Number one, you mentioned the versatility of an Okamoto. If one of those guys is brought in, he can play different positions. Not a defensive star, but also he's not going to be out there kicking the ball around. Like I feel like there's been a lot of reports like with a little snippet at the end of like, not great defensively. Yeah, but he's also, I don't think from what I've seen, a poor defender. I think he's just average. So he can pick it over there at third. We've seen some highlights there. I'm sure he's not necessarily a liability anywhere. So there is still this chance. And the other factor, aside from the versatility of Okamoto, is that Toronto has so much money, right? They have all this money, so they are not out on these guys. A 4-year, $60 million deal for Okamoto does not necessarily take them out of the running for a Bo or Tucker. I'm still a believer that it should be Bo if you're going to go get one of those guys. But we have heard recently about Bo that there are some other pretty big suitors out there as far as the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Cubs. So there's more to come in that realm. But I don't know. It also puts the Blue Jays in a position, this signing, where if they don't do anything else, they're still in a really good spot. So like they're in like a perfect world right now. I wonder if also Jose Barrios is a guy that maybe they look to move. I don't know if they'll be able to, because obviously he was out for the end of the year. So I'm guessing other teams would want to see some proof first that he comes back healthy. So maybe that's not necessarily a right now idea, but it seems like he might be a kind of guy that's like left without a spot, and why not move that money if you can? And that's the thing. If it's an if.
Yeah, and I think, we mentioned them missing out notably on Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto and Roki in recent off seasons. This is a symbolic milestone for them where they're able to get this guy who's a Japanese star, potentially a superstar in the making. And, obviously Yamamoto stings even more. He played a major role. Shohei did as well on the other side of the field. But I think the biggest thing, you mentioned the money they're spending. This pushes them into rarefied spending territory that they're rarely there. So Roster Resorts, looking at the page, they're estimated for their payroll at $286 million. They have a projected luxury tax figure of approximately $308.8 million. And that total exceeds the highest competitive balance tax threshold of 304, which means the Blue Jays will see its first round pick in 2027 drop 10 spots. They'll face a 90% surcharge of any additional spending. And I think that we talk about Rogers communication and spending the money. They're all in right now. They don't care about what's happening in the next few years. They're going to spend to put a winner on the field. They got a little taste of being so close to getting a championship in Toronto, and they're going to do what it takes. I mean, it's a completely different approach than we've seen in other markets where you have an ownership that's just like, we need to go all in and do what we need to do. And just because they got Okamoto and pushes them into the rarefied air doesn't mean they're done. And that's the other thing.
Yeah, and it's like I said, they're striking that perfect happy medium right now where it's like, this is what every fan base would want their team to do if they were this close to winning a World Series. Like, don't take your foot off the gas now and be like, oh, we'll live off of those good vibes for a little while. Like, keep your foot on the gas and say, nope, we're going to go for it even harder this time. But they're also not just spending like drunken sailors. The moves they're making are pretty smart. I mean, yes, some people scratch their head at how many years and how much per year they gave Dylan Cease after a not great year for Cease, but like overall, the moves they've made just make sense. I, as an outsider, not a Blue Jay fan, not a fan of a team in the AL East, not a fan of a team in the AL, just kind of an observer, would love to see them bring Bo back and call it a day. But I do, before we get to our second story of the night, I want to stay on Okamoto just quickly and talk about one team that was really, really hoping to land him as far as their fan base, and that's the Pirates. So as far as like, we were on here recently praising what the Pirates had done and even kind of like half joking about like, man, we could see them in the playoffs, like in a certain world if things go right and guys stay healthy. Neil Cruz finally puts it together, right? And Skeens has another amazing year. The other pitchers stay healthy. A lot of ifs, right? We talked about the if factor, but I feel like they're kind of left holding the bag where they still want that one more move. Like, they already feel pretty good. They haven't had an offseason like this in forever. So if it did end like this, I think most Pirate fans would still be like, all right, still a step in the right direction. Some goodwill. But as far as what they could do now, I've heard really not that many names left for the Pirates. I've heard Yoan Moncada as a guy that could come play some third base, and Eugenio Suarez. Either of those two names for you, if you're put yourself in the shoes of a Pirates fan, do those two names do anything for you?
I think with Suarez, you got to remember where he was at the trade deadline and what he can do with the bat. I know that he did not play well in his time, and I think there is a discount you might be getting on him, which means the Pirates are in on him. But, by all accounts, with Okamoto, they weren't priced out of the bidding. It was just that he chose to go to Toronto. And, whether it was San Diego at the last second, they were the favorite. I just think we mentioned the destination piece of this. I think there's a lot of players that want to play in Toronto. So I don't think that's the reason he didn't go to the Pirates. And they have to feel good as a fan base that your ownership is willing to spend. So the thing is they have to do something though. I think we need at this point, if they miss out on Okamoto, there are sizable options. Mancada would be a good spot too. You'd obviously get him at more of a discount than you would get for Suarez, but either of them would be an upgrade from what we saw when they were we talked about all the categories that were last, and offensively, Suarez would definitely add some bop to that lineup.
Yeah, and I like the pop factor. My only thing is like Brandon Lau, who you just acquired, has some swing and miss in his game, some strikeout whiff kind of stuff. O'Neal Cruz has as much whiff and strikeout as anybody in the league. You're adding another guy in Eugenio Suarez with, not great chase percentage, whiff percentage, K percentage is in the 5th percentile in the league, 29.8% K rate, whiff rate, 4th percentile in the league, 33.3% whiff rate. Chase is not good either. You saw him fall off hard in the second half of the year. The name appeal is tempting if you're a Pirate fan, being like, and he seems like a good clubhouse dude as well. I'm not sure if the fit makes sense to add, even though you might get those 40 home runs, the swing and miss. To me, Okamoto was the opposite of that perfect fit. All right, we got Brandon Lau, some extra pop. Ryan O'Hearn, good on base guy. Okamoto would have been that perfect guy. Doesn't strike out a lot, has pop, can hit some doubles, right? Move him around defensively. So I do feel a little bad. Like, the signing makes sense if I'm Okamoto to go to Toronto, but he would have been a very nice fit for the Pirates. So you don't want to pivot just for the sake of pivoting here. Maybe they surprise us and move another pitcher. I know they already moved Burrows. You've heard Mitch Keller's name for years now in the trade discussions. If there's the right offensive piece and they feel like they still have a little more pitching leeway to give with the likes of Paul Skeens and Bubba Chandler and hopefully Jared Jones in the fold, if they feel like they can afford to move another guy and the price is right, maybe. But yeah, this one, the Okamoto one, did seem like, man, this would be perfect for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned people wanted to play certain places, and the Pirates have to be happy that they are in the bidding at this point, but nothing they could have done. They can't hold ownership accountable for not getting it done at this point. But you mentioned trades, and there's been a lot of discussions surrounding Edward Cabrera of the Marlins. It's been drawing attention of multiple contenders, including the New York Yankees, and they're actively engaged, apparently, in talks with the Miami Marlins regarding his availability. So this is according to reports from Chris Kirschner and Ken Rosenthal. The Yanks are exploring a trade, and Edward Cabrera being a rotation addition for them and a very quiet offseason for them. They are actively involved in trade discussions for also Freddie Peralta. We got a report from the Brewers, of course. Price has to be pretty high on that one. And there was interest first reported during last month's winter meetings. We heard Peralta's name being bandied around a little bit for a lot of teams because of the flexibility and his effectiveness. But there's additional reporting from Barry Jackson indicates the New York Mets and the Chicago Cubs have also expressed interest in Edward Cabrera. So we know, we discussed this multiple times. There's some moving parts for the Marlins, and are they ready to win now? We mentioned them overachieving and the negative runs differential that has certainly plagued them. But I think he's emerged as one of the more intriguing arms during the 2025 season. And you look at his FIP, 3.83, 3.53 ERA, 137 innings and 26 starts. And I think we look at his performance, and there's been always a question about getting him over a certain threshold. And this was the first time he surpassed the 100-inning mark at the major league level. And at this point, I think everyone can say at the very least, he's a viable mid-rotation starter with a lot of upside. We haven't seen the best of him quite yet. And you look at the underlying metrics, reinforcing a lot of that optimism, because Edward Cabrera averaged a career best 97 miles per hour on his fastball. He paired a 25.8% strikeout rate with a career low 8.3% walk rate. Put all that together, you got a 47.9% career ground ball rate. Everything checks the boxes, Devin, of a guy that could be capable of further growth and maybe an ace of his staff. So, and then add in the fact too, it's going to be pretty expensive because you got club control further enhancing the appeal. I mean, he's going to remain under team control until 2028. So any contender, I would not be surprised if every single name is in here. Hearing only the Yanks, the Cubs, and the Mets are involved, there's got to be way more teams interested in his services.
Yeah, and I really think what it's going to come down to is what you kind of said at the end there. 3 years of control, 27 going into his 28-year-old season, and last year was his best year. That sounds expensive to me. I could be wrong. I think for the Yankees, I mean, there was a lot of smoke here today from this morning till now of like literally names being like, sometimes a trade happens and you still don't know the names that are going. We've already gotten some names out there from reporters that would be part of the return, not necessarily the whole thing. And obviously you could take that with a grain of salt, but some of the people tweeting it are reputable people. And you also, this is not just coming from the Yankees side and just Chris Kirschner it's also, there's Marlins reporters on this that have been tweeting about it throughout the day too. So that feels like a legitimate possibility. You mentioned the other teams, the Mets, Giants, Cubs also mentioned here. I'm sure there's others talking to the Marlins, and maybe not just about Cabrera. I'm sure there's, Sandy Alcantara has been dangled out there. Ryan Weathers has been a name we've heard. The Marlins, if we go to their side first, like they can afford to move one or two of these guys to continue help building the thought of their front office, what they want to do here. I mean, if you look at it, they have Sandy Alcantara there. They have Ryan Weathers there, as we just mentioned. Braxton Garrett coming back, who at times looked really good before he was hurt. Jansen Junk, who was kind of came out of nowhere last year. Great name, too, Jansen Junk. Max Meyer, who got hurt again, but should be ready for the beginning of the season. Super talented as well. Yuri Perez, I mean, maybe a top 5 pitcher in baseball before we know it. And both Robbie Snelling and Thomas White knocking on the door, especially Snelling. Like that guy might make the team out of spring training if they allow him to. So like they can afford this if it can help them in the future elsewhere. But for the Yankees, to me, when I hear Mets, and maybe this is just me and as a Mets fan, like I don't see it because I know how attached David Stearns is to a lot of his prospects right now. They already have some younger guys that are a little bit of projects in the rotation or vying for the rotation. And I think it's going to take a good number of prospects to get this guy. And he comes with question marks that you alluded to. Like, yes, last year was definitely a step forward, especially the second half of the season. First half of the season, he was still that guy that, the stuff looked pretty good, but he was not getting deep into games. First 11 starts, couldn't get through the 6th inning. And then 7 times from June to September, went 6 or more. He even had an 8-inning start there, I think, against the Braves, where he had a great outing. So he has it. He changed a lot of things last year. His arm slot went down to 36 degrees, which was the first time I believe it was below 40. So a pretty significant change there. And it seemed to result in 2 things. Obviously, the lower walk percentage, which you mentioned, which is huge because control has been an enormous issue for Edward Cabrera for the first several years of his career. But also a lot of increases in horizontal movement on different pitches. He also changed his usage as far as his pitch mix a lot. Way less 4-seamers last year, which even though he has a high velocity, his 4-seamer gets crushed. Like it just, the shape of it just does not or has not worked. So maybe someone in the Yankees organization or elsewhere can get their hands on him. But his strategy last year was just to decrease the usage of that pitch a lot, through more sinkers, which can kind of act like his fastball if he needs to get something across for a strike and show that velocity. Way more sliders, slightly less changeups, which used to be his bread and butter. He can throw like a really high-speed changeup. And then the curveball, to me, when you look at it, was the most valuable pitch last year. It was, I think, a run value of 7, which was maybe second best among starting pitchers last year, 45.2% whiff. So there's a lot to like. But for me, even though the control is tempting, this is when I'm reading these reports and I'm seeing Yankee Twitter be like, yes, get it done, get it done, get it done. My question to you, do you think Yankee fans really are thrilled by the idea or just are starving for a move?
I think I lost you for a second. Just repeat that last part of what you said.
What was the last thing you heard me say, just so I know?
I just think you were asking about the question marks that I also have as a Yankee fan.
Okay, so what I was saying is with those question marks out there, I was kind of surprised to hear or see so many reactions from Yankee fans on Twitter so positive about the idea and saying, like, let's get this done now. My question to you that I asked was, do you think they actually are thrilled by the idea or they're just starved for a move right now because it's been such a quiet offseason?
I think it's a mix of both. I think the upside you can't deny. We see ace potential, as I mentioned before, but my biggest concern for him is not just can he reach the potential, it's the injury stuff, because we talk about him reaching a certain limit last year, but the shoulder issues, that there was a point where he had a UCL issue as well, where we know that we don't know exactly what you're going to get from him in the future. So if you're paying a high price for him and adding him to a rotation. Like, let's be honest, Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon expected to open the season on the injured list. You don't need another pitcher that's going to spend a significant time on the IL, especially when it's going to cost significant capital from your prospect pool. So, I think that they need pitching, but looking at it, I think maybe it's like a Stockholm syndrome piece for the Yankee fans, because we are looking for an upgrade everywhere. Obviously, they should be in on Framber. They should be in on Ranger Suarez. Doesn't seem like they are. The biggest piece of why the Yankees front office looks like they're going to be in on this is because he's about to earn $3.7 million in arbitration this season, which makes him pretty damn affordable than the relatively higher price free agents, which to me, you could spin that in a very negative way as a Yankee fan of like, this is where they're trying to dabble and spend their money because they don't want to spend the higher price, what it costs to actually do business in New York as a contender. But I'm not saying it's a bad move, but it would really depend on the price for me. Like, and it's going to cost a lot because with the control of both Peralta and Cabrera, it's going to cost you a decent amount of money to make this happen.
Yeah, there's a part of me that feels like the idea of Edward Cabrera, and I don't just mean for Yankee fans, I mean like as a baseball fan, the idea of Edward Cabrera seems to be greater than what the actual product has been. And even last year, which was his best year, like some of the stuff doesn't jump off the page. Like his stuff plus overall is 105. Like, okay. Not amazing, like fine, but the curveball was pretty good, 119. Like we said, that was a really good pitch last year. But 105 stuff plus, 101 location plus, which was his best of his career, and he struggled over the years. So there's definitely some worries out there and no sure thing. And especially you add the health on top of that. Like when he's out there, we're not sure if he's the guy that we think he can be. And then there's oftentimes, like you said, shoulder, elbow, that he's not out there. So, I mean, I will say again, I think there's fire where there is smoke here. Names have been thrown out there as far as returns. These two teams did get together on a deal not long ago, right? Jazz Chisholm was sent over to the Bronx in a deal that the Yankees sent 3 prospects back to Miami, including Agustin Ramirez, who is now a starting catcher for the Marlins. So it seems like they have a good rapport. Maybe the price tag won't be as much as we're thinking, because they want to kind of, you know what, we're going to sell Cabrera high. We're not so sold on him ourselves. We want to get some kind of return back here. Let's just get this done. Maybe there is that, and that's what Peter Bendix is looking at here. But overall, when I read it, coming off a career best year, right? 28, going to be 28 years old, 3 years of control. With everything we've seen in the starting pitching market from last year's trade deadline to this year with the Shane Baz trade, like I feel like he's going to be expensive. We just said like an episode or two ago that there's that idea out there that Mike Elias killed the starting pitching trade market with that deal because it was just like, wow, no one's going to want to trade for pitching if that's what the price is.
Yeah, and I think the Cubs are also in on this as well, which kind of ties us to the other story that's coming here, because if the Cubs were to acquire Edward Cabrera via trade, we talk about the financial piece of this, and I think a lot of the front offices, until they're ready to win completely, like the Blue Jays being right there, they don't want to cross that evil luxury tax threshold. That's a big deal for these front offices, which you look at the recent financial tendencies of a front office like the Chicago Cubs, they want to figure out a way to make both of this work. And I would imagine that their broader offseason approach, they want a starter and they also want a bat. And that kind of fits both angles here. And I'd imagine that the Marlins are going to ask for like a Nico Horner in this deal, and they're going to want some prospects as well. And I'm the Cubs. I'd be very hesitant of doing business in that way. But let's talk about the market for Cody Bellinger, because it's starting to take shape a little bit. And there's a familiar organization that is re-entering the picture, which was shocking to me to hear. John Heyman reported the Chicago Cubs have checked in on Cody Bellinger. And of course, this places Chicago alongside the New York Yankees and the LA Dodgers as teams with direct history with Cody Bellinger, but also adds to the broader list of clubs that we have discussed here multiple times that have shown at least some interest in Cody Bellinger's services, whether it be the Giants, your New York Mets, the Angels, the Blue Jays, the Phillies have checked in on him. But while the nature of the Cubs' involvement at this point remains unclear, I think it reinforces that Bellinger's market is active and might be as fluid as it ever has been, because to me, it's befuddling that Chicago's interest is back to where it is, because maybe it is kicking the tires. Maybe it's just due diligence of finding a bat. But the fact that we looked at a reunion with Bellinger representing a notable pivot of how they feel about the player, because they recently moved on from him just over a year ago. If you guys remember, of course you all do, the Cubs traded Bellinger to the Yankees after he declined that first opt-out in the 3-year, $80 million contract he signed prior to 23 season By passing the opt-out, Bellinger left the Cubs responsible for $52.5 million over the final 2 years of the deal. Chicago ultimately cleared most of that future obligation by sending Bellinger and $5 million to the Yankees in exchange for Cody Petit, who was later DFA'd and traded to the Orioles. So, like, this is a player they were not high on. So did he do that much reconstruction of who he is as a player? Or is this just getting the market higher up? Or again, is this just the Scott Boras regime just putting out feelers of just making sure that this inflated value is there for his guy?
Bingo. I mean, the last one is what it is to me. A reunion with the Chicago Cubs to me makes zero sense. Like, they were pretty happy to get him out the door. One good year, that's going to convince you, do you want him back now? Like, you saw what he was in your ballpark. I don't think seeing what he was in Yankee Stadium is going to change their mind, especially when he's expensive as he sounds like he's going to be. The Cubs have really not been dipping their toes in that water. Like, I think they'd be more interested in trying to bring Tucker back or move on and let one of these high prospect kids play. Like, they have some options out there.
Owen
in the
Casey,
system.
Kevin Alcantara,
Right. Like,
Moises Ballesteros, like those guys are there.
If you're not bringing Tucker back, give those kids some run here and let them go with it and see what you got, right? And maybe one of them comes out of the pile as a star. So I don't buy the Cubs thing at all. That just screams Scott Boras being Scott Boras. The Yankees thing, the report was that they have now made a second formal offer to Cody Bellinger. And Joel Sherman's words were that it seems like after a slow offseason, the Yankees are waking up.
Good morning, Prince.
Yes, whether it be the Edward Cabrera stuff or now the Cody Bellinger stuff as well. Maybe they land both of those guys, and Yankee fans have a little more of a smile on their face afterwards. I don't know. To me, everything I read just makes it sound like Bellinger wants to stay with the Yankees. My opinion is the only team I think that could steal him is the Dodgers. I think if he does not end up getting the offer he wants from the Yankees, I could see the Dodgers kind of waiting there with open arms. Like, come home. You can still come home. Like, we're going to welcome you back with open arms. And they'll give him something. I could see that. I don't necessarily see the Mets stuff. I definitely don't see the Cubs stuff. I know the Giants are around there as well. To me, I don't know. I don't think I see that either. I think this is a game of the Yankees or the Dodgers at this point. But I wanted to ask you, as a Yankee fan, like, I remember all the Pete Alonso talks for the last couple of years. I would constantly go through my head like, yeah, I want him back, but I really want him back at this number and no higher, or this amount of years and no higher, because we know how first basemen age. Bellinger, obviously not the same case. A great athlete. He should probably age well as far as athletically. Can play multiple positions. But, like, he has that one good year, right, playing with Aaron Judge. And before that was kind of hit or miss, and even had a couple seasons where it looked like he shouldn't even be playing Major League Baseball. So, like, my question to you is, as a Yankee fan, what would you be comfortable with as far as years, maximum AAV, bringing him back, thinking like, yeah, that's a good deal?
I mean, the projection on MLB Trade Rumors was 5-year, 140. I certainly would be comfortable with that. Anything above that feels like excess for him. With the reports of 8 years, obviously people shut it down, but there's got to be some truth to it. I think the Edward Cabrera trade potential and this deal are tied together, because if you look at the way the roster is constructed after this fact, because if Bellinger does return, Aaron Judge is in right field. We all know that. Ben Rice is at first base, is the everyday first baseman. Stanton is the DH. He can't play the field. Trent Grisham returned after accepting the qualifying offer. He's going to play center. Now you look at left field. That's the only logical everyday position for Bellinger. And who's that leave out in the cold? Jason Dominguez. He has no clear role. It would further complicate the path for Spencer Jones as well. He's expected to reach the majors at some point next year. So I do believe that if this is going to happen and they're going to get this done, makes me believe that Jason Dominguez will be at the center of a potential Edward Cabrera deal. Or maybe it's Spencer Jones, but I believe it's Jason Dominguez. I just believe that maybe it's just me, but they saw enough of Dominguez and say, we're moving on from him. And they would be okay for him to go to Miami. If he becomes a star, that's okay in their opinion. But I can imagine that he's going to be moved on from. If Bellinger's there for 5 years, there's no room for Jason Dominguez, especially while Aaron Judge isn't right. And like we said before, you're paying Trent Grisham a lot of money for a little bit here. So I think they're both interconnected. And like you said, I think 5 years, $140 million is more than fair. He was ranked 8th of the offseason top 50 free agents, but come on, let's not get greedy here.
Yeah, 5 for 140 sounds expensive for Bellinger. And yeah, I agree with you. I'm not a Yankee fan, but I mean, the Mets have been linked to him too. I don't see any world where David Stearns is doing that, but I don't know. Maybe he really likes Cody Bellinger. We just don't realize it yet. With the Jason Dominguez thing, I saw a tweet earlier that said it's starting to feel like Dominguez and even Spencer Jones are falling into like Clint Frazier kind of territory for the Yankees, where they've been talked about so long without really doing anything, and now they're going to start losing their value as a a trade piece.
I think it already happened with Dominguez. I really believe that. Maybe inside baseball they see the raw skills of the Martian, but at least the buzz here locally about Dominguez. I don't think it happened to Jones yet, but Dominguez certainly the bloom is off the rose, if you will. There's not as much shine on the player because he's a little bit limited in the field, to be kind. The bat has not been as explosive as you want it to be. And the bar is pretty high for these. He was compared to Aaron Judge. This guy was supposed to be a transcendent superstar player, and I just don't see it in the cards. I really don't.
Are you surprised that we're hearing the Edward Cabrera stuff instead of Sandy Alcantara stuff, whether it be the Yankees or otherwise? Like, is that a surprise to you that it's Cabrera's name out there?
A little bit, because Sandy was the guy that everyone circled on their card for the trade deadline to be the guy.
Right.
But I think Edward Cabrera, you could probably convince because of the control, because of the fact the upside has not been reached yet. So you can sell that dream to somebody. I think if you're asking someone with some truth serum, the front office of the Marlins would say that Sandy's best years are behind him, but Edward Cabrera, we haven't seen the best yet. And I think you can sell a pipe dream to a lot of front offices.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. I mean, there's a world, I guess, where both guys are dealt. I can't fathom what the cost for Edward Cabrera would be here with 3 years of control and so cheap, as you said before.
Well, who would be more expensive, Freddie or Eddie Cabrera?
You mean Sandy?
Well, even with
Freddie Peralta. You're talking about Peralta.
He's going to be expensive too. There's a lot of control that Milwaukee has with him right now.
Yeah, Peralta's what, $8 million? It's just the 1 year, and then you potentially lose him.
He proved it. He can do it. So Edward Cabrera, we're expecting to do it. I think Freddie Peralta proved he could be a frontline starter.
Yeah,
can he do it anywhere else but Milwaukee? We'll see. He's
been in big games, right? He's pitched a lot of full seasons. I mean, even just looking at the second half stats of last year for pitchers, Peralta 2.77 ERA. That was 9th best of all starting pitchers. Sandy Alcantara's down there at a 3.33. Had a really good second half. That's a 22nd best ERA amongst all starting pitchers. So there's a lot to like with both of those guys, veterans. But maybe the Yankees feel like they have enough years on these guys' arms in the rotation, right? A Garrett Cole, a Carlos Rodon, and they want to get a little more youth. And Edward Cabrera is the younger option of these guys that we're mentioning.
Yeah, there's certainly something there. The front office has taken an approach that they feel steadfast in how they're building this team. But I look at the Aaron Judge prime window as a ticking clock. In my opinion, you have to figure out how to put the best winning team around him. And that's the most frustrating part about all this, is because you have a player that is a generational talent that it feels like they're letting the window close a little bit on him by not surrounding him with the best possible talent. And I get it, cost effectiveness and putting together, you don't want to throw money, but it is a little bit disarming as a Yankee fan when it used to be the Death Star, the evil empire, when you're watching the Blue Jays spend and make it clear that they're trying to win a World Series. I don't feel right now the Yankees are trying to win a World Series. They're content with what they did last year. And you're competing directly with the Blue Jays. They are the ones that eliminated you this year. They're in your division. They're the favorite in the AL East. So even if you win 94 games, it doesn't feel like they're getting past that team. So I don't know. To me, it's a little disenchanting as a fan to watch happen.
Yeah, I mean, there was that. It's interesting because I've said this now so many times. You're probably tired of hearing me say it, but like, the Yankee fans are starving for something right now because it's been such a quiet offseason. I mean, they signed Paul DeJong this morning to a deal, and people are joking like, they did something, but
join the bench. Come on the bench.
TJ Stats on Twitter, Thomas Nestico is his name. He's all over the place, putting out good images out there of information. He put it out, the depth chart as far as total F4 of each team as of today, and the Yankees are up there at like number 3 or 4, I believe. And if you look at the starting pitching, the guys they have on the depth chart as of now would total up to a 13 F4, led by Max Fried with 3.6, Carlos Rodon 2.2, Cam Schlittler 1.8. He'll probably end up doing better than that if you're asking me. And then the starting lineup, or not the starting lineup, all the batters on the team equaling 29.8 F4, led by Aaron Judge 7.3. That's probably a low projection for him as well. Austin Wells actually projected to be the second highest F4 there. So the point is, like, they already are in a pretty good spot where one or two moves like that really could put them in a good spot. And as much as it feels like the Blue Jays and maybe even the Orioles have put themselves in this great spot to be the front runners in the AL East, but the Yankees are right in there too, man. And the Red Sox, even though they're built very differently from these other teams, are probably going to stay alive at least for a wild card. So it's a hell of a division. I got to ask you though, before we get out of here, I was looking at these second half stats. No cheating here. I'll be impressed if you can answer this question. What starting pitcher in all of MLB had the best ERA in the second half last year?
Best ERA, and I'm assuming it's Yankee driven over here, right?
It's not Yankee driven. I have the list up because I was looking at some of these trade candidates, but this is not necessarily a Yankee driven question, so I don't want to steer you completely the wrong way here.
Best ERA, I feel like it would have to be shocking. Like my initial gut goes like Garrett Crochet for what we saw from him. Like that's a guy that I think of. Is he top 5 on that list?
Crochet was 19th in the second half. He had a 3.2 ERA.
Oh,
he was 8-1. 8-1, very good. But no, he's not. I'll give you 5 guesses, I think is fair.
5 guesses. All right. So we're sticking with the American League, or are we in the National
No,
League?
it is all of MLB, but I'm not going to tell you which league.
All right. Well, just to kind of feel out where everybody is, give me a Paul Skeens. Let me see where he is.
All right, you're close. He's second, 1.89. The guy above him was way above, like way better in the second half as far as just ERA. Like we're not talking about strikeout numbers and stuff like that. 3 more guesses.
All right, let's see. Trevor Rogers.
He's close too. You got the number 2 and 3 guy on the list, so you're doing pretty well here. Trevor Rogers was 1.94 ERA. All right, I'll give you a hint because you only have 2 guesses left. We've mentioned this team tonight a couple times.
Shane Bieber.
Wasn't Shane Bieber. In fact, it wouldn't be him anyway, but I wonder if he even qualified. I think I put at least 60 innings in the second half was what I put for minimum playing time. I'm not sure if he reached that. My guess was no, because he came back pretty late. One more guess here. It's an NL team, National League team. We've mentioned them tonight a few times. Someone you wouldn't think.
The National League and the Cubs, I'm assuming. Is it Shota?
Young guy.
So it's not Shota Imanaga.
No, he was getting shelled the second half.
He got beat. I don't know. Maybe it was shocking. He got beat up. He did turn it around a little bit by the end of the year, but young guy. I have no idea. I give you 5.
He's escaping you.
Edward Cabrera? Is it Edward Cabrera?
No. Cade Horton, dude, 1.03. Oh, wow. He went 8-1. I do remember hearing how well he was doing down the stretch, and I think he might have gotten. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like he maybe got hurt before the playoffs or something like that. But anyway, 8-1 in 12 starts in the second half.
Where was Shota? Go to Shota's numbers. I want to see where he was.
I think he got killed. But 1.03 ERA. He was outstanding. Like that far above Skeens. I'll go to Cubs because I'm pretty sure Imanaga got absolutely it was just a home run. He got
shelled in the beginning of the year, if I remember. And then there was a little stretch because I remember he was traded directly for Kyle Tucker in our league, and there was a lot of grief about it.
Oh,
and Tucker didn't play, and Shota pitched kind of better. It kind of worked out for the Shota side of the deal.
Shota gave them 76 innings, which led the Cubs in innings pitched in the second half, but he pitched to a 4.7 ERA.
Which was home run in the first half of the year because he was at like a
I'll look.
Almost, yeah.
Home run per 9, 2.35. So let me look. So that was 4.70. I'm going to look at his first half. My guess is the second half was worse, but let's see if you're right here. So 4.70.
He was getting bombed on every night.
No, 2.65 in the first half. He was good in the first half. Damn. He just fell off a cliff. It'll be interesting to see if he can recover this year.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Shota staying with the Chicago Cubs and seeing him, and there was a lot of love on him his first season and maybe last year. And the Chicago Cubs love their players. Mm-hmm. But we're going to be getting out of here. We appreciate all the support of you guys hanging out with us. Again, we said we're going to go about 30 minutes. We're at 43, but we do appreciate
that's all 30 things. In table setters math.
That's right. But we said 20 last time. We went 30. So add a little bit here, the inflation.
Table setters math.
We're certainly going to be back talking all things baseball somewhere down the line. Again, we're waiting for the Bo news to drop. We're waiting for Cody Bellinger. We're waiting for Kyle Tucker. We're waiting for the pitchers with Suarez and Framber. I don't know, man. It feels like something has to turn the other direction eventually where the other guys are going to be having their teams. I don't know. Maybe it's just recency, but it feels like we've never waited this long for the big guys to fall, right? Like there was that one offseason, I feel, a few years ago that they waited and waited and waited, but that was the misdirection of the offensive bats being sort of misjudged and all those things. But I don't know, man. This feels weird.
We got Soto in early December last year. So, yeah, this one's a little worse. I think overall last year was similar. Like I look almost every day, I look at what signings went down on this day last year, and like a lot of days, like it's like a bunch of nothing. So similar to last year, but I do think we got the Juan Soto signing relatively early last year, Blake Snell as well. But yeah, this year has been a lot of trades, and free agency's gone very, very slow. I know some people have put the thought out there of like having some kind of like deadline these guys have to be signed by to make things go quicker and make it more interesting. But yeah, at this point, I feel like the pitchers are going to start signing. It feels like Bellinger and Bichette and Tucker are going to sign like the day before spring trading at this point.
So make sure you guys follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Keep up with everything we're bringing out there at Tablesetters Pod. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube as well at Tablesetters Baseball. Tell your friends about the show. We're going to continue to drive out content throughout this offseason. Who knows when we're going to be back. But also leave a 5-star review if you could. That would help a lot in the algorithm. We are ranking in different countries. Shout out to Japan and Finland and Denmark. And we were charted in the United States this week, right? This was a big week for us in the U.S.
Yeah, not easy to get on that U.S. top 250, man. They're a little stingy there, but we'll take it. We were charted in 4 countries. Canada, we got to get back on the Canadian list there. But shout out Cade Horton, man. 1.03 ERA second half, man. Maybe he should go in early in the draft this year.
For sure. You got to find those guys out there. That's going to win you a fantasy championship down the line. Getting ready, doing my prep, doing some mock drafts already and deep dynasty leagues. So just looking. Okay. Yeah, looking out because fantasy football is over. We're getting ready for obviously the real NFL playoffs, but we're getting ready for fantasy baseball. That's what it's all about. But we'll be back very soon talking all things baseball. Until that time, we'll talk to you after a while. And as always, happy baseball.
High fly ball into right field. She is gone in a year that has been so